Welcome to TechCentral. My name is James Erasmus, and we are honored to have Megan Keup. Megan's a product expert at CallMiner. Thank you very much, Megan, for joining us today. And she's also joined by two lead consultants, David Ashton and Shaily Dixit from Teleperformance. And we're thrilled to have them on board today because there's a lot to talk about in this space. And we understand that in order to improve agent performance and productivity, the workforce intelligence that can be used and what it means to South African organizations is something we want to dive into, something we've been evaluating. A survey has been shared. It's had a phenomenal response, and we look forward to sharing some of the outcomes of that survey and making the survey results available to you in the follow-up to this webinar. But really importantly is to jump right into what CallMiner does and the details behind it, because we are such a data-centric world at the moment that without the data and without elevating the richness of that data, we possibly just have a room full of call center agents. And that's not ideal. What is ideal, and I'll hand it over to Megan right now, is that we're all together and we have an opportunity to hear from the experts in front of us. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and welcome again. Megan, over to you.
Thank you so much, James, for the introduction. So to kick things off here, I want to talk about driving agent performance. So to drive exceptional customer experiences, contact centers, they must focus on eliminating common agent pain points. So by eliminating mundane, repetitive tasks for agents while providing personalized coaching, support, and opportunities, agents are more likely to experience greater satisfaction in their roles, which reduces agent attrition and drives greater employee satisfaction. So I want to talk about three big trends that are driving change in the contact center. And I will invite, after I go through a few brief stats here, I will invite James and Dave to chime in and see if this resonates in South Africa based on their experience. So a few specific South African stats. We're talking about remote and hybrid work. So from the start of 2021, almost 9 out of 10 leaders, which ends up to be about 88% at large enterprises in South Africa, said they were expected to adopt a more hybrid way of working permanently, yet there continues to be challenges with this due to connectivity and power in the region, and that impacts workers who are working remotely and not in an office. And second is the labor and skills shortage. So a recent survey conducted this year in June said that 69% of employers struggled to attract new talent or retain the talent that they already have, with an increased number of 16% employee turnover in South Africa across all sectors. And then finally, customers' needs and expectations. So according to a recent survey, 89% of South African consumers say experience is just as important. The experience that they have is just as important as the actual product or the service that they buy from an organization. And over half, 61%, say that they expect that service, that experience to be personalized to them. So James or Dave, does that resonate with what you're seeing in South Africa?
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing us into this topic, because as a consumer, I absolutely feel affiliated to a brand that hears me, and the opposite is true when they don't. And there've definitely been some experiences where, as sympathetic as I might be to someone's personal circumstances, working from home, etc., at the end of the day, I still need to get something resolved. And when I call a call center, I still expect that service. So I've definitely witnessed many sides of this and can, as I said, be sympathetic. But what we need to do is work out how to enable organizations and help our listeners here to understand how to manage that performance, how to improve those efficiencies, and how to use technologies in order to drive that positive business and consumer outcome that we're all looking for. So absolutely. David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely as well. The main key point that resonates for me for there is the remote and hybrid working piece, working for large-scale operations of contact centers. trying to protect against COVID and working from home, obviously we had double challenges as well, one of which being load shedding coming through, so power supply for our agents to work from home. And then likewise as well, internet connectivity as well, which is an ongoing struggle for a lot of South Africans in terms of having reliable, regular internet connection at home and trying to use dongles to actually run large scale operations. Sometimes really is a challenge from that point. That's something definitely that we need to overcome to get to that model of a more work at home model for our agents.
Well said. Thanks so much for that insight. So what is workforce intelligence? So what do we mean when we say workforce intelligence, and how does it help contact centers? So I will explain completely what we mean by workforce intelligence on the next slide. But a big part of workforce intelligence is empowering your agents to drive positive CX outcomes. So ultimately, your contact center frontline, your agents, drives your bottom line for your organization. So think of all the areas that agents are expected to focus on or initiatives that they may be given. So perhaps they're tasked with identifying customer needs or answering common questions, upselling products and services, resolving issues the first time. The list goes on, and it's endless of the things that agents are asked to focus on a day-to-day basis. So without personalized coaching insights, agents can feel overwhelmed in their roles and can cause agent churn. So with increased customer expectations, like I said, it's necessary to identify performance gaps to quickly correct the behavior so you can continue to deliver positive outcomes in real time or near real time. So I said I would explain what we mean when we said workforce intelligence. So this is where workforce intelligence really, really comes in. So we think about workforce intelligence in three categories. So operational efficiency, quality assurance and performance management, and agent assistance and empowerment. So operational efficiency, so simply put, just a quick definition of operational efficiency, it's measured by definition by comparing the effort that you put into a task with the result that you get out of it. So operational efficiency could be based on a variety of metrics, including first call resolution, average handle time, etc., depending on your specific organization. And then quality assurance and performance management. So often QA looks a little something like this. Supervisors, they have way too many calls to QA on their plate. And then the supervisor will choose the shortest call to QA because they have so much on their plate. And then coaching sessions, they're often canceled due to bandwidth. And then decisions are made on a really short subset of calls, whereas AI can help to evaluate 100% of calls, and coaching can be more personalized and immediate. And then the final one we have here, which I talked about briefly before, is agent assistance and empowerment. So we've talked about agent empowerment a bit already, but it's important to focus on agent satisfaction as well. So agent empowerment also includes real-time guidance to help with complex customer needs, expedite onboarding, training, and continuously help train agents and grow in their role, which will lead them to be more satisfied.
And Megan, if I can just add here, I must say, I was fascinated by some of the demos that I was watching, because they really illustrate the importance of the data that allows not only the agent, but also the organization that the agent is representing to actually make an adoption, a change, a pivot, an improvement, and very quickly react to what's happening in their customers' hands.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, that is a really good point. I think if agents can be able to self-coach, I think self-coaching is a big part of workforce intelligence. So if they're able to identify a initiative, a reminder, or a area where they can improve, then that's going to be really powerful and allow them to self-coach in the moment.
Yeah. I think with the comments we've got coming through regarding agent approach and workforce, definitely from this piece as well, is the more that we're able to guide agents seamlessly through their roles as well, it makes their day-to-day life a lot easier as well. Sometimes in large-scale operations as well, there's so much training to go through that you're trying to bring an agent in who can do everything all at once. But with this as well, you can actually guide them a lot easier by those coaching nuggets that you've got coming through as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've heard from some of our existing CallMiner customers that the real-time application is really powerful when they have seasons in their business where they are hiring and they're onboarding really, really quickly. So that can be really helpful as well to get those agents onboarded and trained and servicing customers right away. So I want to talk a little bit about the old way versus the new way. So in the old way, there's no sense of common contact drivers. So there isn't a way to understand customer pain points and performance gaps. manual coaching processes. They can cause inconsistencies. Only a handful of calls, like I said, are evaluated. And it's really not representative of the agent's actual work, which leads to the agent becoming dissatisfied. And agents are tasked with work that could be automated. So in the new way, agents are satisfied in their role and are delivering exceptional customer experiences. And this is where CallMiner can help and come in. So we can help identify common contact drivers, deploy automated scoring, and use automation to allow agents to focus on their best work and not those repetitive, mundane tasks.
Lovely. It reminds me of Shuhari, which talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. I think it's very important to remember that we should be giving our call center agents that autonomy, the mastery, and the purpose behind what they're doing.
Definitely agree. So briefly, this is how some of our CallMiner capabilities map to workforce intelligence. So you can see those three components that I just spoke about: operational efficiency, QA and performance management, and agent assistance and empowerment map to specific capabilities. So for example, if we take agent assistance and empowerment, so we have performance dashboards, so agents can self-coach or have personalized coaching conversations with their supervisors, agent guidance, and then agent after call work. So these are just an example of some capabilities and how they map back to workforce intelligence. So with that, I will hand it over to Dave and Teleperformance.
Thanks, Megan, for the handover. So yeah, absolutely delighted to be able to speak today and give an overview of some of the work that we do with our clients at Teleperformance using CallMiner speech analytics to bring benefits for contact center efficiency and workforce engagement as well. So look, maybe let's give a bit of background as well. So Megan, if you go to the first slide, please, just a bit of who we are and what we do. So Teleperformance is one of the largest business process outsourcing businesses in the world. We have a global staffing workforce of 380,000 people globally. It's a mammoth amount of people across the world, servicing some 88 countries and 170 different markets as well. Our operation within South Africa is tied with the UK. So UK and South Africa has a workforce of 8,000 people, of which about a third of these are in South Africa, predominantly all in Cape Town, of which we service 16 different clients across a number of offices through the Cape Town area. Now, look, working for outsourcers as long as I have done, not the full 44 years of that, but most of it, I guess, we've learned through outsourcing that actually we need to almost dissolve our own business. So taking on people's calls these days for labor arbitrage and just bringing in more calls, and I hate to say the words bums on seats, which is a horrible term, is our goal as well as expanded from that from a contact center operation perspective to actually look at where else we can actually support value within those industries as well. So whether that be through looking through technology, through automation and things of that nature, chatbots and self-service, through to process excellence, of whereby we put people in from a Lean Six Sigma perspective to make the actual timing for an operation and for a transaction to be shorter, quicker, faster, cheaper from that perspective as well. And then underpin that by analytics as well, by taking those nuggets of gold from every conversation with the customer that we can get more and more value out from, because those unwritten, unnoted conversations are usually the real gold dust that can actually drive change into what happens within an operation. So much so that from a Teleperformance perspective, our consulting agencies will actually do a TAP assessment, which is technology, analytics, and process excellence from top to toe to be able to actually, drive out those changes as well, which is actually, dissolve our own business by some extent by actually reducing the number of calls that we are taking.
David, thanks. You've also touched on the fact that there are many, many channels of engagement. And I think that's very useful for us all to remember. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Some of the channels other than phone are obviously things like SMS, you mentioned chatbot, email, social media, surveys.
Yeah.
What other channels might people be using and how might technology be enabling those channels?
Yeah, James, absolutely. The move from voice to non-voice channels is absolutely astronomical globally. And I know from a while ago, I'm now in South Africa now for 15 years, and there's still a belief that there isn't a desire or a demand for non-voice channels within South Africa, but it's not the case, especially after COVID as well, whereby a number of contact centers had to close down their voice operation for the reasons I was saying before, for people working from home. Yeah. We had to actually move over to those asynchronous channels of communication. So whether it be a web chat from a PC through to WhatsApp, through to IM. IM is a huge movement these days as well. So more and more platforms are coming through with more and more channels, and it really is moving to a digital perspective these days than just voice.
Yeah.
So working with Teleperformance, and I've worked with TP now for a couple of years. Previously just worked for large-scale system integrators in South Africa as well. One of the reasons why we work with CallMiner is mainly to do with the relationship we have with them as well. We're a licensed reseller of CallMiner products. And we won Global Partner of the Year this year, which is quite an accolade for us as well for the amount that we do. Now, from a scale of ingestion of hours, so obviously analytics works whereby, the interactions that take place, whether it be voice or non-voice, is put through into CallMiner, and then we start listening to every conversation, reading the words that are being said, then putting the algorithms around that to actually pull out the detail of what those categorizations are. Now, look, for last year, we were almost ingesting 5 million hours globally into CallMiner. And this year, we're on track for 6.5 million hours. That's a phenomenal amount of data going through to CallMiners for listening for our customers that we service. And we service with about 70 labels globally as well. And one of the reasons why we partner with CallMiner in this relationship, which has been about 5-6 years now, is a number of reasons. Primarily for the security perspective. From a global company, we have different security standards to be adhering to globally, GDPR being one I think everybody knows about, and there's some local ones as well, and making sure that for the range of industries that we service as well, whether it be retail, banking, financial services, telcos, for example, as well, is that all of the security requirements are being dealt with in a way that we satisfy not just our own TP requirements, but also our clients as well from a contractual perspective. And then the support as well from a support and development perspective is when we're working on bids, obviously we're an outsourcer, so we got to look for companies to work with, is that CallMiner is always there helping us develop their sales packs and bids and actually doing product development as well with us at the same time to satisfy our needs that we've got from there as well. Cool.
Okay, we've got another question, please. So I know our audience are fascinated, and there's a lot of very interesting questions coming through in the QA, which we will definitely attend to if they aren't answered in the next period of time. But let's see what the answers are to this next poll, which is, what would be the top driver for your organization to use conversation analytics? Okay, overwhelmingly, better customer experience. The customer is at the center. I love that.
I love that as well.
Absolutely. Really does resonate, James, as well, because obviously from better customer experiences as well is you identify those interactions that give better outcomes from the get-go. But likewise as well, sometimes the better customer experience is actually no reason to actually call the contact center in the first place. And that's quite a lot of the work that we do as well with using analytics, is identifying that low-hanging fruit that we can move out from a interaction with a human, whether that be with a bot or moving from that perspective, or actually no need to be in touch at all, actually getting rid of the problem or the need before it actually happens. And that's a lot of the experience work that we look at as well. Cool.
So, David, I'm actually very glad you're bringing up a practical example here, because I think we want our listeners to see that in real life, this really does happen.
Yes, it does. It does. We're going to go through this myself and my colleague Shaily to take you through some of this case today. So look, we're going to give you a bit of an overview about one of our clients, which is a UK energy company. Now, we service a number of UK energy companies within Teleperformance, and this one in particular is one that came on board with us around the beginning of 2020. So look, a few challenges that took place from an operational perspective because of COVID and trying to outsource a operation when none of the SMEs could come over and give those training sessions live and things of that nature, but also as well in a time when the world's changed a lot as well. I think for anybody who reads Business Day and quite a lot of the local papers as well, there's a lot of reflection on what's happening in Europe, especially about the energy crisis that's happening over there. Not too dissimilar to ourselves in South Africa to some extent, but particularly in the UK, is whereby in 2020, there was a price cap for the cost of what businesses could actually sell their gas and electricity for. And there was actually a rising cost in the background as well of what those raw materials were being as well. So margins were being eroded in the background from that perspective. And then comes 2021 as well, which is obviously we've got inflation issues, cost of living is becoming more and more expensive. The supply of gas is becoming more of a challenge as well with various issues with the world just now as well. And then in the UK as well, we were talking about regulatory issues. So in the UK as well, there is a massive move as well from that price cap perspective and regulations on the industry itself, one of which is whereby the businesses are asked to be more proactive in supporting their consumers in the amount of consumption of electricity and of gas to make sure their bills are lower. So if you think in the background of this, you've really got a perfect storm, which is the fact that as a company, you're being asked to keep your prices at a certain rate, okay? Your raw materials are going up astronomically in the background, and then you've got regulatory items as well on top of that, which means that you'll be receiving fines if you don't actually adhere to the first two steps of what's taking place in that mantra as well. So really, what else do you do? Well, the other one in the UK industry as well would be you thinking, let's get more consumers. Because the price cap and the cost of the increase in the cost, a number of energy companies were going bankrupt and were going bust in 2020, and the actual onboarding of new customers was going to be a lost leader because you couldn't bring them in because you're going to lose even more money. So that was a real challenge that took place with our client. So in there as well, what's the one thing that you can do? Operational efficiency has to be key, where you can strip out waste in every interaction, where you can reduce the cost of every conversation, and then start moving more and more into different channels to make that cheaper to do from there. So the client that we're going to give you a bit of an overview for came to us and said, how do we do this? So one of the big options we had was to use analytics and start really going into those nuggets of conversation to find where we could strip out waste within every single interaction, look at the pain points of what was taking place and what was driving contacts into the contact center that we could possibly deal with and move out from there. So I'm going to hand over now to Shaily Dixit, who's my colleague at Teleperformance, who did a lot more of the insights and the analytics piece from here. So Shaily, I'll hand over to you if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, David. So rightly said, David, and also, you see, we all understand that this is a fast changing landscape, not just for utilities, but most industries globally. So it is imperative for us to maintain a balanced focus on elements such as compliance, customer experience, cost reduction, etc. And that's exactly what we usually aim to go for. And for this particular client, we began with understanding how FCR could be improved, which essentially pointed at the high transfers and repeat caller percentage that we had at that point in time. One of the findings that really helped was that there was a high percentage of transfers happening in calls of shorter duration. So using different filters, etc., that we have in CallMiner, we are able to segment the total data into different buckets and basis their AHT, basis, a lot of other metrics. So the ones with shorter duration, they had a higher propensity to get transferred, and there was transfer language towards the end of the conversation being used, which denoted that, they are getting moved from one department to another. And what we realized that the majority of these calls were getting transferred between the two major meter types that we have for utilities, which is essentially smart and heritage. When we conducted an RC exercise on this, we realized that many customers weren't sure about their meter types. And this is a relatively simple reason, a simple fix, but it had huge implications on the overall process health. When the customers dialed in and reached the IVR, they got certain options, and one of the options said press 1 if you have a smart meter, press 2 if you have a heritage meter. And what the business didn't realize that, while we talk about utility industries in and out and we are well versed with these terms, jargons, etc., but the customers, they were confused about the type of meter they had. So a simple suggestion around how they could simplify their IVR messages so that the customers choose the correct option really worked wonders. Of course, there were similar findings on probable call avoidance by agents, incorrect agent mapping, also some excellent cross-skilling opportunities that we were able to identify, which helped reduce the transfers overall. In general, for this study, we were able to reduce the transfer rate by up to 25-30%. So that's one.
Shaily, I was just going to say as well, smart meters and traditional meters as well. We were saying about the terminology, the jargon on the back of this. For anybody who doesn't know, so, in South Africa, we have unsmart meters, which is we have a prepaid box that when it runs out, it turns off. In the UK, there was a lot more of the old school meters whereby the numbers click round. A couple of things on the back of that is that actually people would have to do a meter reading, or somebody would have to go out and do that and look at the meter to produce the bills. They were done estimates, for example, as well, which wildly fluctuated in the background as to what the consumption might actually be, because they're done estimates. So smart meters is a UK initiative by the government, which is actually does a lot more day-to-day consumption reading and also tells, by the hour how much consumption is being taking place from there as well. So you would think that naturally everybody would want one of these boxes on their home so they could control their bills a lot better. But actually, there's been a lot of resistance from that from the UK market in terms of when it's been offered. They're like, I'm not quite sure. I don't think I really want one of those. So it really has been a big one to say that from a perspective whereby we need to start promoting these in the contact center, it helps with some of the conversion of the customers to control their bills and do the regulatory requirements we've got from there. But likewise as well, just that terminology piece just in general is causing confusion within the operation as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shaily.
Thanks for pointing that out, David. So let's refer to point 4 here and let's discuss this study around the conversion. Of course, as you said, this is basically regulatory requirement, and the utility energy Suppliers, they have an obligation to take all reasonable steps to install smart meters for UK customers. At times, the utilities companies also end up paying hefty fines for non-compliance. But because smart meters are fully digitalized and the workers, they don't need to physically access them for meter readings. Hence, it is also a cost reduction for the companies who have a good majority of customers having smart meters. So basically, the objective was to optimize conversion. We generally don't look at increasing conversion. We generally look at optimizing it because we want to maintain a balance in the customer experience and improving the conversion rate. And CallMiner, certain verbiages, we were able to identify and use different algorithms for CallMiner and use these algorithms to categorize a subset of calls where the smart meter was being pitched and promoted. And similarly, there are multiple exclusion keywords, exclusion functions that can be deployed, which can also detect absence of important verbiages. And on conversion projects like these, it is best to begin from understanding what the true conversion opportunity was. So obviously, where the customer already has a smart meter or maybe is agitated, we aren't able to help for the query that they called, it doesn't really make sense or it wouldn't qualify to pitch for a smart meter. But once the base for real opportunity is identified, we generally proceed to understand the style and the pitch adherence. One of the biggest findings was that a large subset of agents weren't offering the rebuttals at all, and they needed guidance and encouragement to follow the practice. The other observations were around, process adherence to conversion, where although the customer was interested, we weren't really able to close the sale because maybe the requested dates were unavailable or the agent system wasn't functioning. So, to understand whether there is a appropriate contact the customer process fitted for scenarios like these was important. Another very important element which takes place in conversion projects like these is around rebuttal efficiency. So it is important to understand the types and kinds of objections the customers come up with. They might simply say, not interested, I'll speak with my partner, get back, it's too costly. Not in case of smart meter, of course, it's free, but in general, for other industries like banking, etc. And then we want to evaluate how the agent really responded to each of these objections. And basis these objections, what was the true conversion rate? So are there certain styles, phrases, verbiages, which are deriving more success than the others? So these are certain important elements which we usually look out for in our conversion projects with CallMiner.
So just to interrupt there, what I also saw is that those stats are available real time. Am I correct? So through CallMiner's intelligence, those are visible to the organization that's being represented in real time.
Absolutely. So they will be visible real time depending upon the version that you have of CallMiner. And then you also have a feature which is QA automation, which basically on real time basis or on the ingestion frequency basis, it is able to churn out these insights, which will give you on an agent and a team manager level whether the correct pitch was made or not, proactive language, benefits explained, rebuttal. So whatever elements you want to quantify and create categories for, you can have an immediate day-on-day visibility. And this is a very powerful feature which generally we utilize for targeted training needs for our contact center folks.
Okay. Likewise, well, Shaily was dealing with this as well. That really feeds into the performance management piece as well and operational efficiency. Because at the same time, you take the work out where by quality assessors have to listen to the call, because we're doing that already. So actually, we can spend the time on coaching and actually developing agents a lot more than having to do the groundwork to begin with. That automation piece has been taking place from that.
Yeah, lovely. And pass that credibility back to the agents to thank them for identifying something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
And an element which I specifically find really useful coming from an ops and quality background myself is the ability to audit certain type of interactions. So for instance, generally we have like a sample-based environment if we were to look at traditional quality approach, where processes will audit 1%, 2%, 3%. The more you audit, the higher is your effort and cost. but generally they audit like a limited sample and then infer intelligence out of it. And this is generally, a random stratified approach is used so that we give, every interaction an equal chance, which is fine. But when it comes to, say, conversion, when the objective is to improve conversion or to improve CSAT, customer experience, NPS, etc., when you have these targeted objectives, suppose I give you 1,000 calls and I give you the ability to pick up those 10 contacts where the system is telling me that the rebuttal could have been done better. So that's where this works wonder, because then as a quality or an ops leader, I can pick up these 10 contacts. I know on the remaining 90% of the data, the system is telling me that they aren't any errors, so I might not need to evaluate those. But from an agent targeted coaching perspective, I have the opportunity to pick up these 10 audits and see where the agent could have done better. And basis this, I'm able to share, immediate feedback with him via CallMiner itself. So that doesn't really increase my quality coach's work to share the feedback, get acceptance, etc. So this in totality works wonders to improve the knowledge of our agents, and also they stay motivated. They're getting regular feedback in terms of incentives, in terms of other things they are doing better. They see themselves improve each day. So this is something which we really love.
Thank you very much. That's very insightful, because I see that some of the questions coming through in the QA are asking, how do we, and I think the answer is motivate. And I'm a strong believer in leadership. And I think that leadership and the way in which people can be encouraged through data by their leaders is definitely something that you've brought to the fore there. So thanks very, very much.
Anytime. You're welcome. Let's also discuss maybe the last case study here, which is around the vulnerable customers. You see, vulnerable customer and especially getting payments from this is a delicate mix. It is one of the trending opportunities in most industries, especially like utilities, banking, etc. And a lot of pre-work can be done through these categorization. One of the most important things for UK market for vulnerable customers is around whether we are identifying them in the first place or not. Are we offering the correct solutions to them, whatever are the valid discounts or howsoever we can help them, are we doing it? So how we've been able to help our vulnerable customers here while also being able to get better payments out of them. So the idea here is to quantify the total vulnerable customers and the different types of vulnerabilities that you're getting. So once you understand their specific needs, which and you are able to correlate it with their ability to pay, their preferred payment plans, additional support requirements, etc. So through all of this correlation and categorization, you are able to create a culture where they feel listened to, and at the same time, it's also like a revenue generating stream for the business. Yeah. I think I will finish there.
I was going to say with that said as well, really that vulnerable customer piece is relatable across nearly of every industry globally as well. The impact of the financial crisis that we're going into just now, we really see this a lot, whether it be from an energy provider, from banking facilities, from collection companies. We're seeing a lot more requests in our industry as well, from the outsourcing piece of how we support these vulnerable customers and from a payment perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Shaily.
So these are some of the initiatives at the back of these insights that we were able to drive, and some of the actions that the client and ops took, which revolved around fine-tuning the language on the IVR, cross-skilling their agents, controlling the abrupt disconnections or callback. For smart meter conversion, of course, I'm sure the audience understands when the rebuttals aren't being offered on a majority of the calls. And once you're able to fix it, the conversion would improve to a similar magnitude. So yes, we were able to double the conversion here, and it is still going strong. So these are some seemingly easy fixes, low-hanging fruits, which doesn't take a lot of technology intervention, something that can be put together faster, etc., that we were able to do for the client.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And what is the state of South African organizations?
Yes, perfect. So we have run a survey with TechCentral asking South African contact center decision makers and influencers, how can technology drive workforce efficiencies? So this survey explored the challenges and priorities within the contact center as they manage performance and improve efficiencies using technology. So I'll go through these very quickly. So the first one here, just reading from the screen, it says, through which channel can customers contact you? So the top answers split 25% and 25% were phone and email. And then are you currently using technology in your contact center? The top answers were call recording, quality monitoring, and workforce management software. So scheduling. So pretty much the tenets of what you'll need to run a contact center. And then this next one, how do you currently manage quality automation and monitoring? And the top answer was manual QA. And I will say we see this a lot at CallMiner. A lot of customers who initially come to us are currently using manual QA. I was reading about a case study, I think it was earlier this week, where one of the business challenges a customer was a healthcare company who was looking to solve was to be able to evaluate more calls, and they weren't able to using manual QA. So definitely agree with this one. And this is the last one. So top 3 customer service challenges: performance coaching, agent attrition, and operational efficiencies, which maps directly to workforce intelligence. And then the top 3 customer service priorities: employee experience, improving internal efficiency, and enhancing customer experience and satisfaction. So again, not surprising answers based on everything we've seen and everything that Dave and Shaily have shared as well. All right, so what's next for workforce intelligence tech? So this is the tech that you can roll out today, and that's available for deployment. So first, we have Alert, as we talk about a few times in this webinar, real-time capabilities. Shaily spoke to it as well. So Alert is our real-time product. It combines AI, automated transcription, alerting, and redaction to provide your contact center supervisors, quality agents with real-time actionable business insights. So optimize agent performance, like we talked about, with real-time guidance, ensure compliance, mitigate risk, pinpoint and act on upsell opportunities, and improve customer experience via proactive escalation. So all of those can be solved with this Alert product. And then we have Screen Record. So this is one of the top answers that we revealed in the survey, technology that's being deployed now. So Screen Record can be used alongside the QA process to analyze the agent's screen to better understand the customer interaction. Speech tells a part of the story, but the screen can tell the complete story of the interaction. So you can improve contact center metrics, see how the agent is engaging with the systems to improve processes for the agent, and then get a better understanding just generally of every interaction that happened. So those are the 2 products I'd like to highlight today. And then I went through that really fast, so we had time for questions.
You did. Thank you, Megan. Thank you very much. To all our listeners who are out there, and as I keep implying, the questions and answers have been flying thick and fast, and thank you for that. So I'm going to ask David to please apply himself to some of these questions, and Megan and Shaily. But before you do, I just wanted to say, as listeners, we're looking for solutions. And often the solution, I don't want to say this, but the solution looks like a hammer. Why the hammer? The question is, what needs to be done? What is in the background that hasn't been reviewed? Is there a process? Is there a people element? And very often it starts with people. And some of the questions that came through talked about inculcating the correct culture. I talked a little bit about motivation. And I think it's so important to not just look to technology as the answer, but to guide the people into a process where they're comfortable to then use the technology and know that the technology is not only there to support them, but to support the organization that they in turn are supporting. So thank you very much for your insights. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to some of the answers to these questions. Thank you, David.
Cool. Yeah, thank you, James. So look, I think just grouping some of these together as well. I think one of the first questions we've got on here as well is regarding interaction points like IVR and all of voice and USSD strings and things of that nature. So look, we do a lot of work with CallMiner as well with Nonvoice and using text analytics from different sources as well. So as long as that interaction can be either fed in live or in batch filed into CallMiner as well, as long as there's something from a text perspective that we can analyze, then that can always work as well. We do a lot of work as well on CSAT surveys, and this is based onto one of the points that was on there regarding NPS. So we do a lot of work as well by we use the NPS verbatim comments as well for a very similar way as well, looking for themes and trends and that nuggets in that conversations. Large amounts of customer surveys are being made, Okay, then we can put those into CallMiner and start really bringing out those themes and trends of what customers want to be focused on. Because let's face it, you know what? An NPS survey back into a contact center singly, you can fix that single problem, but have you got to the root cause of what, have you probably 100 customers and not just that one as well? So there's a lot that can be done from that perspective. I was just looking there as well, quite a few comments here as well regarding contact centers as a whole from a terming of customer delight, customer obsession, which absolutely should always be the way as well. Focusing totally on how to identify opportunities that we're saying already, that the customer doesn't even have to contact the contact center to make that the most delightful experience ever. The best experience is not having to have one at all, which is always the way from there. I think we've got a number of case studies as well, especially in TP's world, whereby we've identified how we can actually stop that whole problem from starting so you can actually mitigate that contact into the contact center as well.
I mentioned the word customer centricity earlier, and I think that by giving the agents access to the data, they can feel this pain that is a common pain amongst their callers, and let's just say callers in this instance, and actually effectively put themselves in their shoes and say, I understand this problem. I've seen this problem many times over, and this is what we're doing about it. And that's the autonomy that call center agent needs.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, James, as well. I mean, working in a contact center, it's an operation whereby it's a repetitive task that's basically just doing the same data processing, data entry over and over again. It can become quite a monotonous job. And, that's why people have got a high turnover of agents, whereby people leave very quickly from that perspective as well. We've always said as well, realistically, contact centers these days should be whereby when somebody comes in, it should be the moment of truth. They've tried self-service, they've tried other ways of channeling their questions to get to a point whereby once that's been exhausted, having to speak to somebody live actually should be whereby other things have failed them, which again gives the agent far more autonomy on their day-to-day job. They feel more of a sense of achievement in that conversation, the interaction they've got. But likewise as well, we need to listen to those conversations at the same time to say, why did that moment of truth fail in the first place as well? So it really is that whole holistic cycle as well that comes through. Yeah.
Very insightful. Could I ask, one of the questions was, what is a sort of typical percentage when you talk about turnover, resignation, of perhaps the management layer within call center?
Look, it varies from account to account and from operation to operation. I mean, we always know that there's a far larger turnover from an outsourced perspective, usually from an in-source, but that's normally from a development perspective. But look, for companies like us at TP as well, we make sure there's a roadmap so that management, people who have been brought up from within that contact center environment can move from an account to an account and develop their skills throughout the business that's wider and wider. It's a hard one to answer. I think the best places to go to is obviously the Bepesa numbers as well, because they often do have those kind of overviews of what the industry is saying within South Africa. So, I mean, it does depend from company to company. Yeah.
Super. Okay. Thank you very much. Megan, Shaily, anything else from you in terms of answering some of these questions?
No, I think James and Dave, you covered it. I think your experience in South African markets is invaluable for this conversation. So thanks so much.
I think we've covered most of it.
Super. And it's been a wonderful conversation. I think we've had a super engagement from our listeners. And thank you, TechCentral, for joining. Our TechCentral audience is varied across many different industries and standards and represent so many different parts of different organizations, not just the call center and the customer awareness piece, but also the product side and service. And there's so many different aspects that you've really touched on today, which have given us all some insights into how technology is there to enable us. So from me at TechCentral, thank you very much, Megan, Shaily, and David. Really appreciate your time. And from all of our listeners, thank you very much for the time you've made available to us. And what a wonderful conversation. We look forward to the next one.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, James. Thanks very much.